talk radio. And you can get it's internet access radio. So you can get this anywhere, on smartphones, in your home, on the internet. So if your wives or mothers or sisters at home, put the internet on this consistent radio station with talks, really knowledge-based talks.
What's the
They're
station?
repeated. CTR Talk Radio. I'll give you the details afterwards, but just to let me tell you, it's like, for example, there's continuous recordings being played, noise being blown out continuously. So if one time is not suited for you, it will be for somebody else. So if you've got time in the evening, you can listen to it, and the talks are repeated. So what I do is I put about 17 hours, 20 hours of talks, and it repeats itself for a week, or 3 days, or 4 days. Then I put another 17 hours or 15 hours of talk, it repeats 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So anytime you want to seek knowledge, go to the radio station. Yeah, so you ready, yeah? Yeah, that's right. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, as-salatu was-salamu ala Rasulil Kareem, amma ba'd. For us to understand Tawheed, it's imperative for us first to understand the origins of why Tawheed came about. The one worshipping of oneness has become such an important thing in Islam. Now, from that which has been established in the Sharia, established in the Quran, is that the Ummah, when Allah created the Ummah, they were upon Tawheed. They were upon the oneness of Allah, worshipping Allah in oneness, not associating any partners with Allah whatsoever. This is established in the Quran by the ayah where Allah said, كان الناس أمة واحدة فبعث الله النبيين ومبشرين ومنذرين. Which means that the people were once one nation. They were one nation worshipping Allah alone. Then Allah sent prophets, people who give their tidings, and warners. So here this ayah is clearly showing that the people were once upon Tawheed, worshipping Allah in oneness, and there was no need to send messengers with messages. So this was when Adam alayhi salam came on the earth. When Allah said that whoever from amongst you follows my guidance, he will be saved. He put Adam on this earth, Eve on this earth, they lived, their progeny, their two sons and their progeny lived on this earth, and they were all worshippers of Allah in oneness. It is said that there was 10 generations between Adam alayhi salam and Nuh alayhi salam. Then the time of Nuh alayhi salam. In the time of Nuh alayhi salam, this is the time when Shaitan came and he began to whisper into the ears of the Muslim, of the creation of Allah. And before the setting of Nuh alayhi salam, he would come to the first generation, one of the generations, later, say the seventh, for example, the seventh generation of Allah's creation, and he would say to them that you had these righteous people who used to live in your time, called Wad and Nasr. I'll mention them all in a minute. And they used to live there, and they were righteous people. You all loved them, you all held them in high esteem, you respected them. Why don't you just make an idol, a statue, a picture of them, keep it in your homes, just to remember them? So that generation accepted these thoughts that was put in their minds by Shaitan, and they began to create idols, statues, pictures, carved images of these pious people. These 5 pious people, they were righteous, and they worshipped Allah in oneness. They did not associate any partisan, but they used to be concerned with the people and help the people all the time. That's why they gained their love. Then the second generation, after this generation, Shaitan, he whispered into the ears of the second generation, saying to them, all these idols you see around you, these carved images, these pictures of these idols, your fathers, they used to stand in awe of them. They used to really respect them a lot. So you should respect them too. So the second generation just began to stand in awe of these idols. They would just humble themselves in front of them. They would take them and put them a little idol around their necks and our hands, and wherever they went, they held them in high esteem and high awe. Then the third generation, Shaitan whispered to the third generation, saying to them, your forefathers who made these images used to worship these idols, because these idols, these carved images, these pictures of these 5 people represent Allah, represent the one who sends down the rain, controls the moon, the sun, the stars. So the third generation began to think and believe that these idols had power like Allah had. They believed that these idols were gods, were ilah. They were worthy of worship. So then they began to direct worship to these idols by what? Sitting by their statues, carved images, going by their graves, prostrating, bowing down, making ruku, standing in awe, in humbleness. Whenever they swore oath by these idols. Whenever they slaughtered the name of these idols and these statues. They began to believe that their life revolved around these idols. And these idols were the source of all good and all harm. Allah said that Allah's Messenger he said that every mawlud, every newborn is born upon the fitrah, is born upon this natural inclination to worship Allah in oneness. But it is his parents that make him a Christian, a Jew, a mushrik, a fire worshipper, and so on to the end of the hadith. When we now take what I've just said previously in the light of this hadith, we understand that regardless of however many false deities exist around us, we believe it's our iman that we have been born naturally to worship Allah in oneness. And it is for us to find our fitrah if our fitrah has been distorted away. So likewise, those people in the time of the generations preceding Nuh alayhi salam, it was for them to find their fitrah, to find out and test themselves, is this the right way? But all they could find was shirk and worshipping of other than Allah. So they said in the Quran, and they said, you shall not forsake your gods. You shall not forsake Wadda, Su'ad, and Yaghuth, and Ya'uq, and Nasra. These are the 5 gods. These are the 5 righteous people who the people turned into gods. Okay? The people turned into gods. These 5 were righteous people. And they didn't want to be worshipped. But the people came after and they began to worship them. There's a nice hadith here which explains what I just said. And I'll just read this hadith out and you can see what I said, how it fits nicely into place. Yazid ibn Muhallab, he said that Abu Ja'far al-Baqir, he narrates to him that he was killed at a place where another besides Allah Jalla wa Ala was first worshipped. Then he mentioned Wadda and said, Wad is a Muslim man. That first God was a Muslim man who was loved by his people. When he died, the people began to gather around his grave in a land called Babel. And they used to mourn over his death around his grave because they missed him. So when Iblis, a shaitan, he saw this, he saw them mourning, he came to them and he said, I see that you are mourning over this man. You're crying over this man. So why don't you make a picture of him? Maybe a statue, or carve an image or an idol. So they began to do that. And then they used to place this carved images, this picture or this idol in their gatherings. So whenever they would sit together and gather, they would have this idol there. And when Iblis saw them doing that, he said, why don't you keep them in your own homes? So then they began, after this suggestion, to start carving these images and keeping it in their own homes as well.
It's 17 hours.
And then he said, why doesn't every man amongst you make a similar picture and keep it everywhere, not just in your homes, in the markets, everywhere. So that everybody began to now make these carved images of idols and statues and pictures, and they would sell them in the markets, they would be in their homes, they would be everywhere now. He said, this will remind you of this righteous man constantly. So this is the first generation. Shaitan, how he's coming to the first generation to just, confuse them out of it, making them think that they are remembering this righteous man. And those from the later generation saw what the previous generation had done, and they considered that to the extent that they took in these idols to be objects of worship. And then Satan came to them and said that this was the first idol worship other than Allah. And they called this idol Al-Wad. So what was the first one? And Shaitan fooled them to think this is Allah, and this is how it came about. So now, we ask ourselves, why is it, if Allah Jalla wa Ala created mankind upon the fitrah, that then He allowed this shirk, this associating of partners with Him, when He is one, alone, has no partners, has no son? It's because it goes back to the dialogue between Allah and Shaitan. When Shaitan was thrown out of the paradise to remain on the earth, as he was, leaving, he said to Allah, give me respite until the day of judgment. And I will show you how I will send astray all of your slaves except the few, your righteous, sincere few. So Allah Jalla wa Ala said, okay, I'll give you respite until the day of judgment, and whoever follows you, then I will fill the hellfire with them and you. So now the challenge has come. Shaitan said to Allah, but I will show you how I will change your creation. And this is at the head of changing the creation. He knows what will make Allah Jalla wa Ala so angry is when Allah creates us, sustains us, protects us, provides for us, and everything we need He gives us, and then we turn to an idol, a statue, a human being to worship. This is taking Allah Jalla wa Ala's right away from Him. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. He said, I've not created the jinn or mankind except to worship. Shaitan knows this, so we come now to make the people change. Don't worship Allah. Change from your fitrah, your natural inclination, the way Allah has created you, and make you now worship other than Allah. Be it knowingly or unknowingly. But that is His task. That is His ultimate task. Is to make the Muslims do shirk, associate partners with Allah, worship other than Him, or if He can't get the Muslims to worship other than Him, at least He gets them to worship along with Allah somebody else or something else. This is His task. And for the non-Muslims, they are already not worshipping Allah Jalla wa Ala, already associating partners with Allah. So what He does with them is He makes them corrupt the earth, spread corruption everywhere, in every corner of this earth. Except obviously those who have the natural fitrah, who don't want to harm, don't want to obviously spread corruption. And these you find eventually they will come to Islam, they will find their way. So this battle of Tawheed has begun from the sending of Iblis to this earth, and he starts to confuse the creation. And he watched for 7 generations before he attacked how Allah's creation is, what these humans are like, how Allah has made them, how they react this way, how they react that way. 7 generations is a long time. And then he began to implement his tactics of whispering in the first generation, and the second generation, and then the third generation ended up following him. Very clever. He didn't want an immediate change over 10 years, or overnight, or even over 100 years. He knew if he tried that, he couldn't get that. So he started slowly, because see how patient Iblis is. Very patient with his corruption and evil. So this is how he will come to us as well. Patiently, corrupting us. And if he knows he can't corrupt us, say, don't worry, Mr. Baksh. Don't worry, Abdullah. Don't worry. I can't get you people, but your children. They've got your children's children. But I will send them astray. He will try so hard. May Allah protect all of us and all of our children. So, with Allah Jalla wa Ala, He did not leave us with no guidance. He knew very well that Shaitan is going to plan to set astray all of his creation except a few. So he sent messengers with a sharia, with a book, with a way, with a methodology to teach the people. So the people will understand the bigger plans of Shaitan, of how he's coming to try and attack us from left and right, above, beneath, from in front and from behind, and we don't know. He sent messengers and prophets time and time again to every nation. وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنْ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. That we have sent messengers to every single nation, ordering them to proclaim, to worship Allah in oneness, and do not follow the false deities. Stay away from them. This was the message. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent these messengers, and these messengers came with clear proof, clear messages. What happened when these messengers came with their clear proofs, with their message from God Almighty? What happened? Did the people all of a sudden, we've been wrong these last 100 years, let's change now? And everybody changed? We know from our history, from the Quran as well, it tells us this didn't happen. Some changed and followed their messengers and their prophets, and others didn't. Why? Because they were so engrossed, so strongly knitted into what they were upon for years and years, and maybe generations as well, that Satan made it very difficult for them to come out of the way they were used to then come to Tawheed, worshipping Allah in oneness. It was too strange to them. Just like a few examples, not in any order. Shu'aib alayhi salam. Let's see his goal. He said, قالوا يا شعيب أصلاتك تأمرنا أصلاتك تأمرك أن نترك ما يعبد آباؤنا. Does your prayer, you're praying to Allah in oneness? Oh Shu'aib, does your prayer, praying to Allah in oneness, instruct us to leave what we used to worship and what our parents used to worship? So you can see how they're mocking him, making fun of him, making him totally rejecting his words. And then we look at Salih alayhi salam. قالوا يا صالح قد كنت فينا مرجوعا. Oh Salih, you used to be a respected person amongst us. قبل هذا, before all this that you're coming with, because he used to order them with good, he used to order them to worship Allah in oneness, and they weren't used to this. They said, what's this new thing? So that before you come with this new plan, these new ideas, and this new message, you used to be a respected person amongst us. أتنهانا أن نعبد ما يعبد آباؤنا? Are you ordering us to stop worshipping what our parents and forefathers used to worship? وَإِنَّنَا لَفِي شَكٍّ مِمَّا تَدْعُونَنَا إِلَيْهِ مُرِيبٍ. We are in great doubts about what you are calling us to. We have great doubt about what you're calling us to. Can you see now how firm they were upon their ship? Can you see this? This is an example of how Shaitan, Iblis, the accursed one, he works. He works so hard to knock them in this shirk, in this association of partners with worshipping other than Allah, or worshipping others along beside Allah, so hard that they find it very difficult to want to abandon or leave. Ibrahim alayhi salam, قالوا نعبد أصناما فنظل لها عاكفين. They said to Ibrahim alayhi salam that we worship our idols and we stand there in awe of them. قال هل يسمعونكم? Do these idols, these statues, do they listen to you? Can they hear you? إذا تدعون, if you call them, أو ينفعوكم أو يضرون, can they benefit you in any way? Can they harm you in any way? قالوا بل وجدنا آباءنا كذلك يفعلون. So they didn't answer him. Didn't give an answer to any one of his questions. They said, no, we found our forefathers worshipping this. So look at how it pollutes, shirk pollutes the intellect, corrupts the intellect, that you cannot even see sense after this. He's saying, look, can they hear you? Can they respond to you? Can they save you from harm? Or can they harm you? No answers. Just one answer. This is how we found our fathers. And this is what we're going to remain upon. You see, Shaitan, when he spreads his message, he spreads it with great, emphasis and great effort to pollute the mind and corrupt the intellect. Musa alayhi salam, فقال ملأ الذين كفروا من قومه ما هذا إلا بشر مثلكم يريد أن يتفضل عليكم ولو شاء الله لأنزل ملائكة ما سمعنا بهذا في آبائنا الأولين. And so the people, they said, or the kings, the leaders, they said, from those who disbelieved, they said, ما هذا إلا بشر مثلكم. This Musa is nothing else but a human like yourselves. He's no different. He just wants to get one up on you people. He wants to be better than you. He's after leadership and power. And then they said, if Allah Jalla wa Ala truly wanted, He would have sent down a malaika, an angel. We haven't heard this in our books from our fathers of old. This is what the Qawm said. We've never heard this from our fathers before. If Allah wanted, He would have sent an angel. But He sent a man like yourselves, who just wants to get a better position than you people. You see how the arguments they brought, the shaitan, how he whispered in their ears, and he put so much confusion in their minds and made them believe what they were upon for many, many years, hundreds of years, for generations was the correct way. But you can see the battle between Tawheed and Shirk. Every time Allah sent a messenger, his Qawm called him a liar, soothsayer, mocked him, didn't believe in him, time and time again. But some followed him. Those whom Allah were pleased, and who Allah was pleased with, they followed their messengers. Right up until Musa alayhi salam, when he said, Inni Rasulullah ilaykum jami'an, that I am a messenger sent to all of you, to the whole of mankind. Jews, Christians, mushriks, Muslims, everybody. But what did they say even when he was a messenger? Even when he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam lived amongst them for 40 years before prophethood. And they called him as-Sadiq, al-Amin, the most trustworthy, the most honest. So much that he said on the mountain, if I was to tell you people that behind this mountain an enemy is going to come to attack you, would you believe me? They said, you are Sadiq, you are Amin, the most honest, the most trustworthy. Why would we not believe you? And I tell you now, your Lord is one Lord. He has no partners. Oh, we don't want to believe this. No, what's this? We haven't heard our father say this before. This is the way Shaitan works. The battle between good and evil, the essence of it, the basis of it all is the battle between Shirk and Tawheed. Everything else is secondary to that. When you see alcohol, against non-alcohol. Drugs, no drugs. Prostitution, no prostitution. Adultery, zina, no adultery, no zina. Everything halal, etc. not. Lying, cheating, being honest. All these are secondary. But they're very important as well, but they're secondary in this battle. Why? Because if the essence of this battle was one, and Tawheed prevailed over Shirk, then you will find that these secondary matters, most of them will come into place. Not to say that a person of Tawheed would never ever fall into any one of the other crimes I mentioned. It is possible. It is possible, but less possible. Because somebody who understands Tawheed is what? Tawheed is Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah, and Islamic Sifat. Somebody who understands these three fundamental matters of Tawheed, the likelihood of this person venturing into haram is much less than a person who does not understand this and does not follow this. Why do I say this? Someone who recognizes Allah is the Lord of the worlds, Lord of the heavens, created everything, sun, the moon, the stars, gave me food on my plate, provided for me. The world doesn't move around except by Allah's permission. Nothing moves, nothing whatsoever. I have children by the grace of Allah. Allah gives me everything I need. This is Rububiyyah, Lordship. And then worship, if somebody truly understood what the meaning of worship is, that I cannot divert any act of worship to other than Allah. All my acts of worship must be only to Allah. And why should I not direct it to Him alone? When He is the one who feeds me. He is the one who provides for me. He is the one who protects me. He is the one who gives me my children, my health and everything. And then the Tawheed of knowing Allah through His names and His attributes. He's Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Ghafur, Al-Wadud, Al-Razik, Al-Khaliq, and so on and so forth. Somebody who understands all this, do you think they're going to steal when they believe that Allah is the provider? Do you think they're going to commit zina and adultery and drink alcohol when Allah said to them, these are no good for you, and what is good for you is marriage and drinking that which is halal? A person who understands Tawheed properly is less likely to commit these crimes. So my point is, the essence of this battle is between Iblis and Allah, between Tawheed and Shirk. Now, the forces of Shaitan will work so hard against Tawheed and the people of Tawheed. Anybody who stands to call to Tawheed, to the oneness of Allah, Iblis, as Shaitan knows that this person is more harmful to me, to Iblis, than anybody else. It's too harmful. Because what in its essence this man is doing is calling to Tawheed, is he's saving the people from eternal hellfire. Eternal hellfire. Because if we were to die upon shirk, upon what Iblis calls us to, then we will reside in hellfire forever and ever and ever and will never come out. Allah Jalla said in the Quran. He said, what's the ayah? He said, إن الله لا يغفر أن يشرك به ويغفر ما دون ذلك لمن يشاء. That verily Allah Jalla wa'ala, He does not forgive any sin other than shirk. Allah does not forgive anybody who associates partners with Him. But He forgives every other sin other than that for whomever He wants. إِنَّهُ مَنْ يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ حَرَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ الْجَنَّةِ. Whoever makes shirk, associates partners with Allah, then Allah has made paradise for him haram. Finished. That's the end. Whether your name is Muhammad or John, or Krishna, whatever, whoever you are, you make shirk with Allah, you associate partners with Allah, paradise is haram. That's if you die in that state. If you make tawbah, istighfar, and you change before your death, alhamdulillah, then you qualify for paradise. So this is my point. Allah can forgive every sin, but He won't forgive shirk if you associate partners with Allah Jalla wa'ala. So you can see now, for Shaitan, this is his ultimate. Make the Muslims apostate. His ultimate is, if they can't make them apostate and leave their religion openly, then make them do shirk, knowingly or unknowingly. Because even the shirk we do unknowingly, we will not be excused for. Why? Because the hadith I mentioned right at the beginning, that every mawlud is created upon the fitrah, the natural inclination to worship Allah in oneness. So therefore, if we have this naturally inside us, we will see associated partners with Allah abhorrent. It will not fit with our natural inclination, the way we've been created. We will see the opposites. However, some scholars have said that the second half of the hadith can confuse people. The second half of the hadith meaning that it's his parents that make him a Jew, a Christian, a fire worshipper, etc. So today you can be confused because in many parts of the world, like Pakistan, Iran, in many parts of the world, you can be brought up in an environment where doing shirk with Allah is the norm. Is taught you to be Islam. It's taught you to be worshipping Allah, and you don't know any better than that. So a person who's grown up in this environment, and he's now upon the shirk, he may be excused for the shirk, the action of shirk by Allah, possibly. But he won't be excused for not seeking knowledge. Because if you sought knowledge, you will find people in your locality who will teach you about Tawheed. Or maybe perhaps people came to you to teach you Tawheed, but you broke them off, said, you Wahhabi, go away. Or you this, go away. So now you're going to be held accountable for the shirk that you committed, because you turned away from the message that Allah tried to send to you. But what about a person now in the deep village deserts of Iran, for example? If he applies the instruction of Allah, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. He goes and he searches and he asks everybody in his village, his locality, around the deserts, all everywhere, and they'll say, yeah, this, these are awliya of Allah, these imams, and we have to worship them, and they're this and that, etc. They guide him to shirk. He's fulfilled his duty, this is his knowledge. Then such a person, according to some scholars, maybe Allah will test him Yawm al-Qiyamah. And if he passes the test Yawm al-Qiyamah, he'll go to paradise. If he fails the test Yawm al-Qiyamah, he'll go to hellfire. Although I don't know what the haqq is there, but my point, Ikhwan, is that a shaitan, Satan, will strive hard to make you apostate, to make you leave your religion, and if not, associate partners with Allah. This is his way. So this is why now, my brothers, I've come to this point where now, in the second half, I wanted to talk about the importance of Tawheed. I mean, I think after what I've just said, that should be enough, really, to make you realize how important Tawheed is, and how it should revolve around our daily lives. We should be talking about Tawheed. We should be learning about Tawheed, its different categories in detail, understanding it properly, and then understanding the opposite of Tawheed. You won't truly understand Tawheed until you know its opposites, shirk, and the different types of shirk, the different manifestations of shirk that exist around us. Because the manifestations of shirk, which is the opposite of Tawheed, are different in different locations. Some are the same in some locations, some are different. In England we have a rabbit's foot in your bag for good luck. This is shirk. There's no good luck in Islam. Allah ordains everything. It's written for us. We put our trust in Allah, not a rabbit's foot. But you don't find this rabbit's foot in, for example, in Saudi Arabia. Or you won't find it in Africa. That's something else, I suppose. I don't know, a deer's foot. But my point is, you have to understand the different types of methods of manifestations of shirk in your locality, so you yourselves can abstain from them and warn your family and your friends. And then on top of that, you can also call the people to Tawheed. Now, is it sufficient for us to just be upon Tawheed? Okay, I'm upon Tawheed. I don't make no shirk with Allah. I don't associate no partners with Allah. I detest shirk. I don't go to no graves. I don't worship no peers, faqirs. I don't, believe in specific people are awliya of Allah. Though I believe the principle of awliya of Allah, but I don't say this one is awliya of Allah, this one is so on and so forth. I don't know the way of Tawheed, I don't know shirk, no bid'ah, all these things. I'm free. Is that sufficient? For yourself as an individual, it may be sufficient for you, so you can stand before Allah to say that I did not commit shirk. But one crime all of us will be guilty of regarding shirk is not defending a Tawheed and not speaking out and refuting against pluralism in shirk. Because this is from Tawheed that you defend it. It's from Tawheed that you reject the shirk. So now each and every one of us in this room who's heard this has to go and pick up the book, Kitab al-Tawheed, and start reading. So you understand Tawheed in more details. And then you will be able to defend it correctly. The Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he never left defending Tawheed in any moment, any situation he saw where he feared that people would make shirk, he would stop them immediately and tell them, you shouldn't do this. I'll give you one example. And inshallah, just one small example. I quickly run over this example of how the Prophet ﷺ, he used to protect the Tawheed. When they were all engaged in a battle, they were going towards, I think it's Hunayn, or one of the battles. Actually, it was one of the battles after the Fath Mecca, after the conquest of Mecca. They went out on a particular battle. I think it's Hunayn. I'm not sure. So when they were going to Hunayn, on the way, they stopped to take shelter in an area before they were going to meet their enemies in battle. You're talking about hours before they engage in battle here. And amongst them were some new Muslims. And they saw these new Muslims, they saw this tree called Dat al-Anwat, where the mushrikeen, they used to hang their swords on for good luck. So them being new Muslims thought, oh, that's a good idea. So they went to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, oh, Messenger of Allah, make for us a Dat al-Anwat like the mushriks have a Dat al-Anwat. Innocent. But this is what they said, this is what they asked for. What did the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? What did he do? Did he say, don't worry, just, let's go and do the battle, finish his mushrikeen, come back and I'll explain to you why we're not going to have a Dat al-Anwat? Did he say that? Did he say, you're a new Muslim, don't worry, you don't have to learn about these things, I'll teach you later? Did he say that? No. What he said was, Subhanallah, Subhanallah, Subhanallah. 3 times he glorified Allah looking up in the sky. And we know the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam never does that unless the matter was of grave importance. And then he said, verily, you have just said what the people of Moses have said. What did the people of Moses say? They went to Moses and said, Moses, make for us a calf unto like the calf of the pagans. So he said, you have just said like the people of Moses have said. And then he finished by saying, verily, you will follow the ways of the Jews and the Christians, meaning that the people of the book, so much that if a lizard was to crawl into a hole, you will crawl into the hole behind them and follow them. And get eaten up basically, get destroyed. This shirk is the way of who? The polytheists, the Jews, the Christians, those who make shirk with Allah. This is their way. It's not the way of Islam and Muslims. Tawheed is our way. So you can see how he defended Tawheed there. He never gave time to breathe for any moment. In the midst of a battle, just before he was going to engage in his battle, he gave the knowledge of Tawheed. He prevented them from the shirk. Because he knew ultimately no help and no aid would come unless his ummah was upon Tawheed. We're worshipping Allah in oneness. Allah Jalla wa said in the Quran, وَإِن تَنْصُرُوا اللَّهَ يَنْصُرُكُمْ. If you aid Allah, then Allah will aid you. Allah doesn't need your aid. What is it he means by this? If you fulfill your duties, this is what he means, then Allah will aid you. Do we not need Allah Jalla wa Ala's aid right now, my brothers? We need Allah Jalla wa Ala's aid more now in this ummah than any other time as preceded. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no year will come except the following year will contain more evil in it. So be ready, my brothers. Prepare now for more evil next year, and more evil the year after, and more evil the year after. But does that mean that we should just sit back and just let the evil continue? Or is it that we are given a task, a job to do, to prevent evil? That is what we are being ordered to do. To the best of our abilities, to fight evil, to prevent evil. We will be rewarded and held accountable for what we do, not the end results. So even if more evil turns up next year, the year after, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter for us as individuals. We will be questioned about what we've done to prevent it, that's all. The change is in Allah's hands. It's order. But for us, it's just to make the effort. When I started doing dawah back in the 1991, 92, and see that's 2013. How many years is that? My time, which I lived in back in the 90s, was a very peaceful place. Now it's like the Bronx. It's worse than that. It's evil upon evil. But this was Allah's plan, His bigger plan. We have no say in Allah's tabdir, the way He's made, He preordained things. What we will be questioned is what have we done every single year. What did we do to prevent this? That's all. Allah Jalla said in the Quran, وَمَا عَلَيْكَ إِلَّا بَلَاغٌ مُبِينٌ. There's nothing upon you except to relate this clear, this great message. That's all. Relate the message. Give the dawah. وَلَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ مُسَيْطِرٌ. You're not a controller over them. You just give your message. Let Allah Jalla wa Ala guide the hearts. إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ حَبَّبْتَ وَاللَّهُ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Verily you cannot guide whom you love, but Allah guides whom He loves. You can't guide anyone. Allah's a guide. Your job is to give the message. Allah's job is to guide. When we understand this, then we will not get too depressed when we see the state of the Ummah declining and the people not responding. Because ultimately it's about you going in your grave, fulfilling your duties. When the Ummah of the Messenger, when the Ummah of Allah does not give Allah His rights, will they give the people their rights? They won't even give the people their rights. When the Ummah of Islam doesn't give Allah His rights of being worshipped in oneness, do you think Allah will give them their rights of nasr and help and tamkeen, da'wah in the da'wah, being established on this earth of khilafah? Not at all. What was the very thing that gave Muhammad sallallahu and his messengers strength? What was it? At Tawheed. Why was the Messenger sallallahu thrown out of his town? Why was he called a soothsayer? Why was he called a liar? Why was he called, all the names under the sun? Why did they throw dung on him? Why did they try to kill him in Medina by throwing a rock on him? Why did they come out of Mecca to fight him in the Battle of Badr? Why did they get all the confederates, the groups together, different groups to come together and surround Medina to attack? Why? What was it all about? Why did they plead with the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Listen, we'll make you our king. We'll give you the best woman. We'll make you the most richest person. Just stop this message, please. Stop this message. What was his message? Worship Allah and leave off these false gods. You're making all these gods into one God? What did they fear? Why did they not accept this? Easy thing to accept. Islam was spreading. Umar became a Muslim. Hamza became a Muslim. Many Abu Sufyan later became Muslim. And why did they still wage war against Muhammad sallallahu because of his Tawheed? Why? When they saw it spreading and winning the people's hearts. Because for them, the Quraysh, having many gods meant a lot of money. Having one God meant they lose their status, power and money. Now you answer me this question. Are we not living exactly in the same environment today as a globally? Of course. Did America ever go into Iraq except for money? Libya except for money? They don't care about Muslims. There's money, oil, wealth. This is what they're after. Why is it they don't become Muslims? Why is this Great Britain, this country so hard on Muslims? Making Islam look so ugly and bad and making the Muslims look like tyrants and evil people. Why? Why are they spending so much media, money and time on this? Because they want to kill the message of Islam. Because they know this message of Islam is beginning to spread. And they fear something which really will bring happiness to them. But ultimately it's the top few which run this country. Few people run this country at the top. And they're the ones who fear their wealth, their status, their position, so that everybody underneath them and everything under them, the media, the TV, the army and everything else, basically has to follow their dictates. It's the same thing. It's all about money, economics, wealth, greed is why they do not want to worship Allah Jalla wa'ala. Shaitan ya'idukum al-faqr. Shaitan, he promises you poverty. He says, don't become a Muslim. You're going to lose all your wealth. Your parents won't give you no inheritance if you become a Muslim. You lose your property, all your friends, your relatives. Don't become a Muslim, you lose your job. Very similar to a lot of, what some Muslims face as well themselves. So my point, Ikhwan, is that this battle that existed when Allah created this earth and creation, which continued during the sending of the prophets, all the prophets, is continuing right now, even after the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the seal of the prophets has come and gone. This message, this battle is continuous. And it will continue until Yawm al-Qiyamah, until Allah Jalla wa'ala inherits this earth. But the good news is that the Khilafah will return. and justice and freedom will prevail. But the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that when the Khilafah returns, it will return upon my sunnah. It will return upon the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Exactly how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam attained it is how we're going to attain it, no other way. Go through politics as much as you like, you're not going to get there. Try and kill and maim and wage jihad as much as you like, you're not going to get there. The way to establishment on this earth is exactly the same way as Allah established Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina. What happened? For 13 years he called to Tawheed, to the oneness of Allah. He suffered with no food, no shelter, eating leaves, insects. Some of his Sahaba were killed, they were tortured, driven out their homes. Everything that many of our Muslims in this world today, like Syria and other places, have experienced. But in those 13 years, they remained steadfast upon Tawheed. They did not make shirk with Allah. Unlike our brethren in the Ummah today, who are suffering all these trials, they're not suffering because of Tawheed. They're suffering because of their stomachs, because of oppression that they have undergone, which they couldn't take no more, so they became angry. And we sympathize with them in that, but at the same time, this is different from that in respect of the reasons why they are suffering the way they are suffering. But my point is, what happened after 13 years? Allah sent people to him from Medina to take him to Medina and establish his state there. So he got the nusra, the help from the people of Medina, and then Islam became established. It had power, it had people, it had authority, it had land. You know, he had all the prerequisites to build a nation now. And slowly the nation grew. This is exactly how Tawheed will come back. It will come back through number one, dawah, tasfiyah and tarbiyah. Purifying the people from shirk and bringing them to Tawheed. That's the first thing. And then purifying the sunnah, the religion, taking out all of the elements, the stuff which wasn't there in its original form. So you're left with pure Islam. Then, once you've done this tasfiyah and tarbiyah, watch. Allah will bring the nusra. Allah will bring the aid. Something will open up in the world, be it a country, an army, people, a nation, a place, something. Allah will cause something to happen to bring that nusra, like He caused something to happen in Medina to bring the nusra to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then Islam will return. So I'm saying it's going to come back exactly like the way the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought his Islam back. There was a story which some of our ulama used to tell us back in the days, many years ago. I think it's appropriate to tell you now. They said once there was a nation before Muhammad, in the old times, and this nation, this gold of people, a tribe, they lived in the deserts, in parts of where they call it, they had greenery there and water flowing. It was like an oasis. And they lived there by there, and they were very, very strong people. This Qawm were tall in stature, and they were strongly built, muscular. All of them, this is Allah created them, gave them this. Whenever the enemies would attack them, they would overwhelm them. They can't finish them. They had authority in the land. They had good health and plenty of food, sustenance. This Qawm was living, happily and with authority. Nobody would dare attack them. And they don't attack nobody, they don't want to harm anybody unless they get attacked. But obviously people try to attack because they want the water, they want the resources there. But they would defend and they would attack and they would win. The source of their strength came from this particular lake or river that they used to drink from. Fresh, clean water, unpolluted. So what happened was, the next generation, their children, when they grew up, as they were growing up, they began to play in this water. And they used to waste this water. They never used to take care of this pure water. Even urinating sometimes while they're playing. The next generation after them came, and they began to throw their rubbish in the water. Things they didn't need up, just chuck it in the river, chuck it in the river. And they noticed the third generation, when they were growing up, they were weaker than the generation before them. Their physique was not so strong. And the fourth generation came, when they attacked their enemies, the enemies would overpower them. And they began to lose land and authority and position. So they all sat together thinking, what's happened to us? Our forefathers used to be so strong and high and healthy. And now we, 3-4 generations later, are weak and ill and sick. And when our elder generation used to have control over the lands, authority. Our enemies used to fear us, and now they attack us daily. So some of them in the meeting said it's because of the weapons. You see, they have better weapons than we do. Others, they said, no, it's not the weapons, it's our strategic location. We're in this place and they're higher up, and so on and so forth. Other people said, no, it's because they're not, our produce is not healthy enough, the greens will grow, and so on and so forth. They gave every excuse that they could think of as to why they were in this state. But what they didn't mention was the pollution of what Allah gave them that was pure and clean, the source of their strength. Nobody mentioned that. So the similitude of this story, that water equals the Quran and the Sunnah, the source of our strength. If we take care of the source of our strength and do not pollute it with anything that wasn't there in the first generation when the Prophet came, take away the bid'ah, the innovations, take away the shirk, the false practices, take away the customs and culture, leave the religion purely as it is, take it and drink from that, apply that, and then you will see how Allah Jalla wa Ala will give us the strength that we so much want. The Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he sent Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen. He said, Mu'adh, إِنَّكَ تَأْتِي أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ, that verily you're going to come to a people of the book. فَلْيَكُنْ أَوَّلَ مَا تَدْعُو إِلَيْهِ إِلَى شَهَادَةِ أَنْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَأَنَّ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ وَإِنَّهُمْ أَطَاعُوا فِي ذَلِكَ فَعَلِمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَفْتَرَضَ عَلَيْهِمْ خَمْسَ صَلَوَاتٍ فِي اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ. The hadith is long to the end. What it means is that he said, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, to Mu'adh, you are going to come to the people of the book. He said in Yemen to give da'wah. He said, you're going to come to the people of the book. So the first thing you teach them is that no one has the right to be worshipped except Allah. And I am the messenger of Allah. If they accept that from you, then teach them that Allah has made obligatory upon them 5 daily prayers in the day and the night. And if they accept that, then teach them that Allah has made obligatory upon them fasting in the month of Ramadan. And if they accept that, then teach them zakat. And if they accept it, then teach them hajj. So can you see, each one was preconditioned upon them accepting the former. So they had to establish Tawheed, accept the Tawheed, the oneness of Allah first, worshipping Him in oneness, before they would pray. This is the methodology the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told his companions to teach the people. So one might say, well, hold on a minute, that was to the people of the book. But we're talking about Muslims here. And we say the same applies to the Muslims. Why? Because the Muslims are associated partnered with Allah, but just different than the Jews and Christians. They don't say Jesus is the son of Mary. They don't say Jesus is God. But what the Muslims are doing today, they're saying some beard in a graveyard back in Pakistan who has the sifat or the attributes of Allah. He can forgive us our sins. He can make things happen which only Allah can make things happen. We can ask Him for forgiveness. He can do it on behalf of Allah. They believe this. Not just in Pakistan, in India, in Malaysia, Indonesia, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, everywhere around the world, North Africa, Africa, West Africa, shirk is prevalent. If you just take these 5 countries, so Indonesia, Malaysia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, these 5. The population of Muslims there make up nearly 50% of the Muslims of the whole world. Do I need to speak any further in terms of number of how much the ummah is engrossed in shirk and associating partners with Allah and bid'ah innovations in the religion, it's a serious matter. And we're asking ourselves, should we be teaching Tawheed? Of course we teach Tawheed. This is the way the Prophet ﷺ taught us. Nobody should feel safe. Nobody should feel safe from ever associating partners with Allah. Nobody. Ibrahim alayhi salam, Prophet of Allah, Messenger of Allah, he said, وَجْدُبْنِي وَبُنَيَّ عَنْ نَعْبُدَ الْإِسْلَامِ. Oh Allah, save me and my children from ever worshipping idols. Is any of us better than Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Khalil of Allah, the friend of Allah? Nobody. Yet he made his dua. Because he feared himself making partners with Allah. He feared his children may do that as well. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, whoever makes this dua in the morning and dies, he will be forgiven for the shirk. He said, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an ushrika bika shay'an wa la a'lamu wa astaghfiruka lima la a'lamu. He said, oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from ever committing shirk, associating partners with you, in that which I know and that which I don't know. So this is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam seeking refuge in Allah from shirk. So if he couldn't protect himself from ever associating partners with Allah, who are we? He didn't let us help. This is how fragile we are, brothers. This is the reality of how fragile we are when it comes to Tawheed, remaining upon Tawheed. Don't think for granted, I'm a muwahhid, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this. Today you may be, tomorrow you may be not. The Tawheed that Allah has blessed us with should humble us so much that we're so grateful, we thank Him for keeping us upon this path of this day, and we ask Him to let us die upon Islam, die upon Tawheed, and not go astray, because if we die upon other than Tawheed, what happens to us? We're finished. Hellfire forever. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that shirk is like a black hand on the black rock in the mist of the night. Sometimes shirk khafi is unseen, to riyah and other ways, showing off and other things. The shirk can be so khafi, so hidden that you can't see it. And this is why the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in that hadith, in that dua, he said, that I mentioned earlier, I seek refuge in you from ever making shirk with you, that which I know and that which I don't know. So we should be doing the same. More so. And again, like I said before, just because we're Muslims and we're upon Tawheed today doesn't mean that we will remain upon this until the last day. Until our last day. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that the last hour will not be established until a group of my ummah will join the mushrikeen in their shirk. Clearly shows you that Muslims will start indulging into shirk. Just like the mushrikeen. Sitting by graves. Our Muslims do that. They do that as well. Worshipping humans. They worship Jesus. We've got people worshipping for years, making sajdas to them, kissing their feet, asking them for things which only Allah can give. Like, for example, make my wife pregnant, make his dua to make my wife pregnant. He says, go eat this flower from this particular field, this land, your wife will be pregnant. You someone give her some. They think they play the roles of Allah. So inshallah, I'll end now with this last ayah. Ibn Malik, rahimahullah, he said that verily the latter part of this ummah, which is us, the latter part of this ummah, will never be fixed except by that which fixed the former part of this ummah, meaning the beginning, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Allah Jalla wa Ala, He will not change the condition of the people, the believers, their goal, until they change themselves, their condition. So the onus is upon us to change our condition, then Allah will change it for us. Until we make that effort, constructive, conscious effort of changing our ummah, will never change. And each one of us is responsible for his flock. Change your family, your friends, your locality, your people. If all of us done this, then all the different societies, communities will get fixed. We ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to give us all Muslims understanding of Tawheed, bring us upon Tawheed, worshipping in oneness, and upon the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and may we die upon this. And whatever you heard that is correct from me, inshallah, from me, that is from Allah. And whatever you heard of mistakes, it's from myself, Shaitan. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين وجزاكم الله خير. If there are any questions that I can take, I'll take them, inshallah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, there is a correction. I want to correct myself. The battle which you mentioned straight after Fath Makkah, I thought you want to recall the ayah ويوم حنين إذ أعجبتكم كثرتكم فلم تغن عنكم من الله شيئا وضاقت عليكم الأرض بما رحبت. But you mentioned another incident, which is the book. Yes. Just to correct you in the battle of Tabuk, because now when you change, you mentioned the other story, it is belonging to the battle of Tabuk. Just to make it correct, okay? Just because I don't want to give misinformation, and this is knowledge, and I have to make it clear, inshallah. But the second thing, inshallah, it is just a simple comment regarding the shirk. And some people, they might misunderstand what shirk is, and we think of ourselves that, alhamdulillah, we do not commit shirk. That's why we are clear. We are on Tawheed and pure Tawheed. The shirk, as you have mentioned, some of them is very minor that we don't really realize it. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam the ayah, اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. And Uday ibn Hatim, radiallahu anhu, when he accepted Islam, he was a Christian and he was a knowledgeable person. And he came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, we did not worship them, we did not worship. The ayah means they have taken their monks and their priests as gods beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he told Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we did not worship them. Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told him, didn't they make the halal for you haram, and you accepted that from them, and they didn't make the haram for you halal, and you accepted that from them? He said, yes, we did. He said, that is worshipping them. So even to that extent, to accept the halal, to make the halal haram, even to accept it, and that committing shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because now you're changing the rules and regulations here.
Let me just make that focus on that, because it's a valid point the Sheikh mentioned. That when you make something halal, which Allah has made haram, then this is shirk. Or vice versa, if you make haram, what Allah has made halal, then that is also shirk. But it's very important we have to see here, Sheikh. If somebody drinks alcohol, for example, this is not a worshipping other than Allah. If a Muslim, God forbid, say, drank alcohol, fell into zina, or lied, cheated, backbited, any major sins, this in and of itself is not worshipping other than Allah. Even if he's following his friends, his people, telling him to do this, it's not worshipping other than Allah. This is sin, major sin. And if he's persistent in that, again, we say this is still a major sin and this is not worshipping other than Allah. However, if he says that it's halal for me to drink alcohol, he believes now it's permissible for me to do this sin. However he justifies it, whatever justification I may be pleased, if I don't drink this, it's not going to cure my illness, so I drink it, or I smoke this dope to give you good health, or these medical issues, whatever these excuses are. If he makes halal, he justifies what Allah has made haram, then he steps over the boundaries and it's shirk. Any other questions or clarifications, corrections?
Lordship, the Rubuya and Uluya, you mentioned another one.
Asma wa Sifat, names and attributes of Allah. For example, we say Allah is Al-Hayy, He's the ever-liver. We say He's As-Sami' Al-Basir. He hears, As-Sami' hears all. Al-Basir, He sees all. If we just say that there is another creation of Allah's who He created, who is also lives forever, doesn't die. As some people they say, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is still alive, never dies. They've taken an attribute of Al-Hayy from Allah and they give it to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or they give it to both Allah and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is shirk in the attributes of Allah. Allah is alone Al-Hayy, Al-Sami' Al-Basir. They say the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is Al-Hadir and Nadir. He's present. He doesn't die. Nazir, he can see everything. This is what they believe. This is the aqidah of some Muslims. Now Allah is As-Sami. He is Al-Basir. He is the one who sees all and hears all. How can we say Muhammad is like Allah and sees all and hears all? Have we not given him partners? So we've taken the attributes of Allah and we give it to the creation here. So we make partners equals with Allah in His names and His attributes. Do you understand? Allah said in the Quran, He said, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. There is nothing like unto Him. There is nothing like unto Allah. He hears all and He knows all. Okay, so He is complete in His hearing, complete in His knowledge, complete in His seeing. We have a fraction of what we can see. We are limited in our hearing and our seeing. Our hearing and our seeing is unlike that of Allah. Is that clear? Any other questions or clarification?
Well, you know when you said like the shirk, if Allah does not forgive shirk, so if somebody like goes out of Islam, is that considered shirk?
Yeah. If somebody apostates,
Yeah.
he leaves the religion, yes, it's considered shirk. Why? Because he is denied, he's made kufr of the ni'mah of Allah. And the ni'mah of Allah is He's created you, He's created you, provided for you, given you everything. Uluhiyah. You know, you accept that rububiyyah, that Allah has provided everything, and He controls the universe and everything. Someone who said, I don't believe that, has rejected this. He rejected rububiyyah. Muslim kafir, he's not a Muslim. And then if he said, I'm also not going to worship Allah, he's a mushrik on that basis as well. Okay? Good question. So, very good. Any other questions?